Well, staying on the advisory, and Payday Super kicks in from tomorrow, meaning every pay run triggers a super obligation that must be settled within 7 business days. And that takes super from 4 payments a year to up to 52 if people are paid weekly. Marcus Zeltzer, founder of Yellow Canary, joining me now. Good to see you. So this is a huge, significant change. What does it mean for directors and boards?
Well, I think from the outset, we need to make the point that directors are personally liable for late paid or unpaid super going back to 1993.
Wow.
So I think nothing focuses the mind more than the spectre of personal liability.
Yeah, there's chatter that there could even be, is it jail term? Am I right about that? If there's not, if super hasn't been paid?
No, that's on the award.
On the award side, okay.
Side. So that was closing loopholes where
Right.
there's potential for custodial sentences for directors and officers of businesses that effectively engage in criminal conduct and steal from their employees.
Oh, okay. So what is the liability then from these changes for directors and for boards?
The liability for superannuation hasn't changed. It's just it's now more front of mind because of the change in frequency. So directors have always been personally liable for unpaid super. So that is for the avoidance of all doubt, they'll have to pay that out of their own pockets if it's found to be unpaid or late paid for staff. I think the fundamental change is we went from a model where we paid quarterly in arrears effectively. So you'd pay 28 days, you had 28 days after the end of the quarter to pay superannuation. So there's a lot more time to get it right. Now we've moved to a model where you've got 7 days. So like you said in the opening, if your workforce are paid weekly, 52 times a year, you've got to make that payment within 7 days. It's a huge change operationally from just making 4 payments a year.
Do you think businesses are ready for it? They've had a couple of years to, I guess, get their houses in order, I should say.
I don't think they are. I think that the government was very clear that there wasn't going to be an extension on go live for Payday Super. It is going live tomorrow. I think the tech vendors, so the payroll vendors, that's quite a structural change to the way they work. And then operationally within organisations, again, that's another change that needs to be made. So I think the rubber hits the road tomorrow, but I don't think that businesses as a whole are entirely ready for what's coming.
So a lot of businesses, it'll be 12 times a year monthly, but you do also talk about this as being 52 times more frequent if you do get paid weekly. How much do you think some of these businesses are underestimating the risk here?
Well, I think it's a tale of two cities. If you look at the big end of town, your ASX 100 and 200 companies, they've got plenty of capital to engage the best lawyers and accountants and buy the best technology in town, and I think they're better prepared. I think the challenge for small business is actually a cash flow challenge. And I think in July, you'll be paying 12 weeks of super for the June quarter, but then you may also have to make 4 other payments for weekly super on top of that. And the cash flow impact of that, I think, is quite significant. And I suspect it will lead in the small and micro end of town. I think it'll actually lead to more insolvencies.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. It certainly does seem that that's going to be a big cash flow issue for a number of businesses. When you look at super compliance, what does a good framework look like under Payday Super?
I think it's understanding the cohorts that exist within your organisation and what elements of people's pay that you actually pay super on and you don't. So we moved from this environment where we had ordinary time earnings, and now we have this concept called qualifying earnings. They're kind of similar, but they're not exactly the same. So that's a change. And I think to understand the cohorts and understand what's going on with the workforce, that's the first step. So for example, you may pay super on parental leave, which you don't have to under the guarantee, but then it won't be reported as qualifying earnings in your payroll system, and then you've got this reconciliation issue. So I think the first thing that organisations should do as of tomorrow is understand what's actually going on a cohort by cohort basis.
Let's talk as well about employees, because particularly for high income earners, there might be a little bit of a concern here with the concessional cap. You talk about the potential 15-month problem. Just discuss that.
I think that high income earners, high income earners aren't going to get any sympathy from the masses, right? Just from the outset. Yeah. So, but I think if you have high income earners in your organisation, the number one thing you have to do, if you haven't already done so yet, is tell them that they're going to get less in their pay packet in July than they got in June. because what previously happened, we had a quarterly cap. So you'd get $2,500 of super each month, and you'd hit the cap, and then that would be it. The way that Payday Super works is 12% of your income, of your qualifying earnings, goes to superannuation, because the cap's now calculated on a 12-month basis. So the amount you get in your pay packet in July will be less, because there'll be more going into your super fund. And I know accountants love to talk about this thing where it's just a timing issue, but I think from an employee relations perspective, employers need to tell their high income earners that they will get less cash and more super, and then in the back half of the year,
it'll fix itself out.
It'll fix itself out.
So you also say the current safety net for fixing contribution errors is effectively disappearing. So what actually changes from tomorrow?
Expect a lot more bounce backs.
Okay.
Because what actually happens now is you will send your payment to a clearinghouse on behalf of your employees, and the clearinghouse has that 28-day window to allocate that payment to a super fund. Now, for folks who have changed names or because of marital status or whatever it might be, if the names didn't exactly match, there was enough time for a human to actually create that join manually on the clearinghouse side of things. Now that we've moved to a 7-day model, there isn't that time. So there'll actually be a wave of bounce backs with super that can't be allocated. And so organisations need to be ready for it so that they can scramble to get those payments out on time.
So how tough do you think the ATO will be during this transition?
I think there's a bit of mythology that there's a 12-month grace period where enforcement activity will just entirely cease. I don't think, that's not how I read the guidelines that have been published. I think you have to continue, if you don't pay super, the ATO will chase you up. I think the approach is you've got to just strive to comply.
And I guess there's a difference between employers who deliberately fail to pay super and those genuinely trying to comply but are just finding the whole process a little bit confusing.
Absolutely. So again, the approach is you've just got to give it a crack and see how you get on, and just be able to demonstrate that you're trying to do the right thing, that you're not just withholding payments that are due to employees'
Well,
funds.
that's the Aussie way, isn't it? Having a crack. Now, if you had one message, Marcus, for directors and boards ahead of tomorrow, it's coming very fast. What should they be doing they should have probably already done it, but what is the main thing to avoid being caught out?
I think just don't panic and just continue to work at it. And as I said, just have a crack, and I think over time we'll get into this operating rhythm.